Today, I want to talk to you about communication. How sometimes when we communicate, you could lose your audience or lose the person you're communicating to. They could tune out because you may not be making a point, but you're conversing. It's kind of like listening to music, but it's a whole bunch of noise and it doesn't have anything. But yet, when you have music with lyrics that mean something, then you connect with it, you repeat it. Similar to when we communicate. You could communicate by sending out the ABCs and and people are trying to pick all the ABCs to create a phrase, or you could communicate with clarity and concisely. Okay. So I know, hey, I'm working on the same thing as well. Because here's the thing about communication. It's been learned at a very young age. You heard me say this. Between 0 to 8, you learn communication skills. And what most of us were told is not to share, not to speak, to not to talk, to not to trust, and not to feel. So we were actually more or less told not to communicate. We were told to honor our parents and be dishonest. So what do? We start to do a few things that kills communication: complaining. We complain about stuff. Complaining is a way of trying to get validation for the pain that you're going through. And that complaining just helps people to shut down. Who wants to be around somebody that complain? But complain makes it feel good, right? We actually connect with other people that complain, but nobody's really getting any healing, right? Both complainers are not really listening. They're connecting. If you complain about something to someone else that's a complainer, they're going to go ahead and complain back to you. Did they really listen to you, or they just waiting for you to be quiet so they could complain? So y'all got a connection to complain together. That's not a good connection. Would you want that? No. Okay, another thing that we do, we convince. We try to convince to make sure that people agree with us. That's when you come across begging. You're like, oh man, I got to tell you, just do you believe me? Then you just overshare because you're trying to convince someone that you're right, or you convince somebody that what you're saying is right, and like they're not listening to you. So you repeat it, you keep repeating the same thing, the same style, but not getting anywhere. I've seen that happen between actually someone that hired a coach to coach them, yet they were giving them advice on how to help them in their business, but the person kept not complain, but trying to convince that their way was right. And I was like, wow, there's no way that this coach is going to be able to help somebody that's trying to convince them that they're right. So convincing is another way that doesn't help us to communicate the right way. And lastly, this is the big one, is combining too much information when you share. When you combine too much information, you go into the facts, right? You share too much feelings, or you share too much facts, you don't get to the point. You share a story without a point, which is confusing. So you give people the brain. By the way, let me just give you this. The brain has a hard time focusing. If you lose somebody by not making a point, or if they're trying to figure out what you're saying, if it's not simple enough for them to figure it out, what the brain does, it's like, imagine running at the gym, running on a treadmill. That's what the brain is doing. And you know you can't run on a treadmill forever. You get tired. And so is the brain. And that's when people check out, because they're still trying to figure out what you're doing, what you're trying to say. All right. So just a real recap. When you're complaining, that's not the best way to communicate. People will check out. When you're convincing someone, people will get defensive and check out as well. They'll literally disconnect. And when you're combining too much information and trying to fit into one statement, and I've seen that happen to so many times, and I've done it myself. So here are the three things that we can do in order for us to clarify, being more concise in how you communicate. This is so important. The very first thing you want to do is you need to stop selling your story. It says, what story? Everyone has a sad story. When you complain, you're sharing a story. You're sharing a sad story about yourself, which, by the way, is a victim story. If you're complaining not to find a solution, that is a victim story. So stop selling the story. You're a really good salesperson, and people most likely will buy it. I've got people selling me stories like, man, you don't understand how bad things are. And I've sold stories myself, right? But the good friends or the good coaches won't buy your story. They will hear you, but they won't buy it. So stop selling them. The second thing you want to do, you need to sort the information that you're about to share before you share it, before you speak. Sort before you speak. Sort it out. Like what exactly, think about it before you're going to open your mouth, before you're going to communicate. What are some of the points that I want to share? Because if you're able to share those, and if somebody, if it comes across not clear, somebody will actually ask you to clarify it. As a matter of fact, in my coaching, in the challenges that I do, in the workshops that I do, I usually ask people to just ask me, give me a question, and then I will elaborate if I don't understand it, right? Which helps me, which saves so much time, right? So sort out what you want to say before you say it. Sort it out in your brain. Sort it out. Does it make sense? Don't process your thinking with somebody else. You're going to lose them. I just said that, right? And the last thing you want to do, you want to seek to be specific. I say seek. Seek to be specific, concise and specific, specific to the point. What is it that you want to do? And the way to share, the way you do this is whenever you're speaking, not even in the setting of coaching or anything like that, speaking to anybody, ask yourself, am I like ask the feedback actually, was I concise of what I said, or did I share a story? Did you hear what I said? And if you could just share more concisely, you're going to get to the point and people are going to catch you. They're going to connect with you. They're going to want to hear more about you. They want to know. And then you sometimes we do have a pain point and the solution is right there, but we're not communicating the solution. We're not communicating the pain, and we can't get to the solution because we either are complaining about the pain but not wanting the solution. We are convincing that we have really bad pain and that's not going to get a solution, or we're combining too much pain and not getting to the main pain to get that right solution. So, and then again, recapping all the points. Number one, stop selling that pain story. Stop selling it. Number two, sort your words. Sort what you're about to say before you say it. Sort it in your mind. Number three, seek. You need to seek to be specific. Seek to be specific in what you're sharing. All right. Thank you so much for watching this. Do comment, and I do read all the comments. So thank you so much for being here.